I'm Bryon Graff, host of Fox 55's Green and Gold Gridiron. My co-host is former Packers and Badgers offensive lineman Bill Ferrario. Bill, I want to ask you about the change in tradition for Paul Bunyan's axe. No longer will the axe be on the sideline or behind the players' benches. Coach Anderson has decided, because of what happened the last time these two teams played, that there was some almost to the level of fisticuffs. What's your thoughts on changing the tradition at this point?
You know, it's tough. It is tradition. So that I have a little bit of trouble with. I do understand the player safety, and nowadays everything on, off, during, before, and after the game revolves around safety. So there is a justified reason around it. I do like what I heard through the grapevine that if Coach Alvarez was still the head coach there, he'd probably say, win the axe, and then you could come get it, and then you could change rules. But while we have it, we're going to do it our way. I think, personally, the most dangerous thing that I ever saw with the axe, luckily I never saw it get taken away from me while I played, but Coach Alvarez always used to play a tape of Wisconsin at home losing the axe, and it showed the whole Gophers team bum rushing the Badger sidelines, and that's where I always thought an incident could happen, because I thought, you know, if my defense was on the field and we lost the game and I'm standing there, you know, you're not going to want to move. That guy's going to want to come through you, and that's where something's going to happen. But the whole chopping down the goalpost, you know, for the Gophers, we really don't even chop the goalpost down. It's all an act. There's never a goalpost that falls over. So, you know, I think they got a little carried away, and, yeah.
You mentioned that you never lost the axe. You won it every single year. Now, that's quite the accomplishment. But what you also told me, which I had no idea, you never actually touched the axe on the field.
I never did. I always, all 4 games I played in, for one reason or another, they're always competitive games. The Wisconsin-Minnesota rivalry was just so intense. Your adrenaline leading up to the game, the actual game itself, didn't matter how good either team was. It was an intense, hard-hitting, hard-fought game. By the time that game ended, the last thing I wanted to do was try and chase down, you know, there were a couple linemen out there, Casey Robach, Chris McIntosh, that would get the axe, but half the time it's linebackers, it's what, and we're finishing the game on offense, having Ron run that clock out trying to do our 4-minute offense. So I'd look, the axe is 50 yards downfield. I was just like, where's my water? Where's the locker? And want to get off the field. And, you know, we joked about it. At Minnesota, it felt we had to walk up about 4 flights of stairs to get to where the locker room was. So I was looking at that and said, at one point or another, I'll get my hands on the axe. I'm not going to chase around a bunch of guys that half of them, you know, we're one big team, but half of them weren't even playing in the game that are running around with the axe. They got fresh legs. I'm tired. I'm going to the locker room.
When people talk about rivalries, they say throw out the record books. But does this game truly mean that much more to the two sides?
I think it definitely does. I mean, you know, I love watching college football, probably more than any other sport, and I love everything about the tradition with all the rivalry games. But when you look at Wisconsin-Minnesota, it's the longest played college football game. I think there was only one break when a president canceled one of the Wisconsin Gopher games. So there's a lot of tradition around. Tradition about the slab of bacon, that it used to be played over. Slab of bacon went missing, turned up in a Wisconsin storage closet that they found, I think, in the 70s or 80s. But then they have the axe. They have all the years on the axe. Every year they'd have a Wisconsin football player stand up and tell the story. Wisconsin born and raised player, tell the story. It used to be Joe Grabowski when I was there, DC Everest graduate from Wausau here. And he'd tell the story about how Paul Bunyan dragged the axe over his shoulder, made the Mississippi River, and his Babe the Blue Ox. So I learned a lot about history that I didn't know just for playing in a football game. But yeah, love the game, love the tradition. I think it's, to me, I think that rivalry and that tradition is bigger and more historic than the other ones out there. There's a lot of other good ones out there, but I think this one definitely has the most history behind it.
This one has a lot more riding on it, because if Wisconsin wins, they go into the conference championship game. So they really have a lot to play for this
weekend. Game is huge. You know, it's one thing to talk about history and tradition, but now all of a sudden, this is probably the most important Badger Gopher game that's been played in, you know, I've heard people say 50-plus years. There's a lot riding on this game on top of the axe and everything it means with that border battle to have that win. So, yeah, there's a lot riding on it. It's going to be a very exciting game.
So whether the axe is on the bench or in the locker room, it doesn't matter. We're all looking forward to this one coming up this
It doesn't matter. It'll be out there eventually. I really think they're going to get it out there as soon as the other team clears and you know it's safe. But it'll be on the field eventually. It'll be held by Wisconsin football players, and everyone's going to have a fun Saturday.
There's our guarantee right there. Bill Ferrario, a 2-time Rose Bowl champion who played for the Wisconsin Badgers.
Go Bucky.